It's coming in now. Right. Good afternoon, everyone. To my panel here with us live in Zoom, as well as everyone following live on Facebook. Today, we're introducing a very important topic, something that we actually have discussed in the last year, and it's the topic of men's mental health. Previously, when we had the discussion at the end of last year, we had a very good presentation from the team in Movember, giving us a lot of statistics, numbers, and broader themes. Today, we want to take it much more personal, much more on an in-person level, and we want to highlight the importance of actually having open discussions and how important men's mental health is in total, but also how you as an individual get affected by this. And then probably more importantly, how to identify some tips and tricks to actually help you then go through this. We've got a couple of very good panelists here with us. We've got Mr. Pierre Mork, who is our past near chairman, a CSO, a top Movember leading activist, actually leading the men's mental health charge on an international level. Mr. Nicholas Fransson from Roundtable Sweden is a tabler since 2015, ex-national board member, and also and also very passionate on this subject. He's also a past area chairman. Then Joachim Andersen has been a tabler for 6 years, and he's also here to share his personal experiences. Anyone following live on Facebook, please feel free to drop in some questions or comments in there, and we will very gladly answer this at the end as well. For now, I'd like to hand over to Mr. Pierre Mork, who would just give us some of his expert insights and the good work he's done with Movember for us. Over to you, Pierre.
Thank you so much, sir. And welcome everyone to a moment of hopefully very interesting and giving speeches and discussions here. So my name is Pierre Mork, and I'm from Sweden and currently CSO for Roundtable International, and have been involved in Movember for quite many years now. And it comes from my personal story, is from when I lost my dad when I was small. I was I was young. I was small as well. I was 7 years old, and from that, obviously it affects a 7-year-old, but actually it also affects a 30 and 40-year-old, because in my genes I have my father's genes, and he was lost by a heartache and a heart condition that is well, we have it in the family, and the risk is that I also have it. So that's why I early in life got to choose between pills or physical activity. And I asked first if it was any fun pills, but it was not. So I started to be more physical active, and after that it just carried on. And I saw people around me, I saw friends and work colleagues that quite honestly didn't move that a lot, and they were talking about they were feeling bad both mentally and physically. And from that on, I just thought that maybe my story can inspire someone to make healthier or have a healthier life, make healthier choices in life. And that's why I started the Movember challenge. From that, I have my own personal challenges, and connected to that, I have my fundraiser that this last November or after that was passing 1 million Swedish crowns, and that's roughly $100,000, I think. And I would just like to say thank you so much for everyone who's contributed. It's not all is on me. It's everyone out there. It's been a part of this, and I'm so grateful for that. And over the years, I have made a little bit of shift, because cancer, as Movember fronted earlier, both prostate and testicular cancer is always important. But the thing that have grown for me is the mental health part, both from personal experience, and I have a lot of friends talking about it, and foremost a lot of friends that don't talk about it. And that's why the mental health part has grown for me over the years. And I think that I've done my part a little bit, and some other guys have done their part. And I just love all engagement and all the stories. And for a couple of years ago, I had the honor to have Joachim and Niklas in a talk to my Movember challenge in Sweden, and it was a fantastic talk. We just went through their stories and they gave some insights from their point of view, and I just thought that we have to do this again and we have to get it out there in the world. And that's why I asked the guys if they could do it again, and I'm so happy and I'm so grateful that they have done that, because one thing that we need to do is to talk more, open up more, ask more, and dare more. And that's why I would like to follow up what Graham said. If you have any questions, please ask the questions, because there aren't any stupid questions. I would like to really highlight that. And if you sit on any questions, or if you think of something or whatever, just spit it out there, because we're here to help each other. And hopefully after this moment, not an hour, but we'll see how long it takes, some of you guys have some tools and some stories to bring with you in the continuous work of the mental health for all the men out there. So thank you so much, Joachim and Niklas, for doing this. I'm just happy and glad to be part of this and try to have a moment that we can, talk about the stigmas and the problems for the mental health part for men. And I don't know, should I start to introduce them, Graham, or do you want to introduce them?
No, you can start. You know him better.
Yeah, we can start with one of my friends from Dalecarlia as well. We all are from Dalecarlia, but Niklas is both a close friend of mine, and when I was the national president for Roundtable Sweden, Niklas was the secretary, and we had a mile or two in the car together during that year, and we had a lot of discussions. And Niklas is a role model for many others out there. He's really open with his struggles, and I am so honored and grateful for calling Niklas both a tailor, but foremost a friend. And I'm so grateful that you're here, Niklas. And you told your stories before, and I'm just looking forward to it once again. So much welcome to you, Niklas, and looking forward to an insightful moment with you.
Thank you so much for those ideas, and I had to not try to cry again, like I did last time. Thanks very much for experience. Do you want me to continue? Or?
Yes, please. Niklas, can you just maybe get a little bit closer to the speaker? Because your sound. Okay, it sounds better now. Yeah, that's perfect.
Thank you. Do you want me to continue or on with my story?
Yes, please. Tell us your story.
Oh my God. I have been struggling with my mental health for quite some time. Like most people, it starts way before you even notice it yourself. But the most
sorry, Niklas. I don't know about you other guys, but I barely can't hear you in my. I don't know if there's anyone else saying the same thing, but I have problems hearing you. Yeah. Do you hear him, Joachim?
I hear him, but it is definitely buzzing. So yeah.
Something is wrong with the noise. Yeah. Can we take a short break? I will need to find a new headset.
Yeah, absolutely. But we can start. We can take Joachim instead.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Fine.
Yeah. So I can introduce Joachim. Well, I will continue. Another fellow tabler from Dalecarlia here in Sweden. So I met Joachim many times during the years. He's been an active tabler in Roundtable Mora here in Roundtable Sweden, and for a couple of years ago, when we had the broadcast here in Sweden for Movember, me and Joachim got together, and he had a really insightful and touching story that I just felt that this would be so great if you're willing to share just a little bit of it. And he said yes, thankfully, and we had great discussions. Niklas has his story, and Joachim, you have your story from your father's point of view, and from your point of view and your family's point of view to your father, who you guys lost to suicide. And I'm so grateful for the last time you were here, or we were together. It was really insightful, and I'm sure it will be this time as well. So thank you so much for being a part of this and willing to contribute once again.
Absolutely. Yeah. Hello, everyone. So Yeah, I'm here because I'm representing the family perspective, the outsider's perspective on watching mental health and just general health issues from the outside, how that affected me and the rest of our family. So I watched my dad deteriorate over a period of 4 to 6 years, I would say, where he went from being a super energetic role model. He ran multiple businesses. He was a pillar in the community. He was politically active. He did everything during the time I grew up. So unlike Pierre, who lost his dad really early, I lost mine at the age of 28. So I had the entire growing up, entering adulthood period. And then around 22, he started having issues. And these are not, these are very subtle things initially, and they're not necessarily, well, when we talk about mental health, we often talk about like genetic issues or brain functioning or that sort of thing. He might have had combinations of those. He certainly had problems with alcohol in periods, but he started having issues in life in the form of a relationship that wasn't working out with my stepmother, problems at work, maintaining regular schedules and just maintaining work-life balance. Then as the separation got worse, there were like real issues over a period of about 2 years where, well, separations are never nice, but this turned into a super ugly separation with prenups and legal issues. I think we had 12 sessions in court where I attended with my father during this time. And during that time, like this was a long period of deterioration. And I'm going to keep stressing that. It's going to be one of my themes for the day, that these things don't appear quickly and they don't necessarily appear obviously. He was fine for the first year, 2 years. Sure, you saw patterns in his behavior where he's unhappier or he was worried about things. Also, like at 20, I was still 21, I was still a young adult. So when he started showing behavioral patterns that like, oh, well, okay, he's concerned, he's worried. You weren't really there to support him. As I got older and it became more obvious, you noticed that more. But so it starts with small signs, and then as things got worse, you start getting erratic behavior from the outside. We got more alcohol. We got just more loneliness. He became less and less approachable. We could no longer like hang out like Father Sunday type things. Just stopped being appealing, and he withdrew into just being himself, and that lasted for like years. And then eventually it got to the stage where like about 4 years, you notice so heavily that the relationship isn't there anymore, that you really try to reignite it, you try to reconnect, but you don't get the response because he was so I'm speculating, but it felt like he was very locked into the issues he was experiencing. He wasn't feeling supported. The divorce issues had gotten worse, even if they resolved really unfairly in his mind. He felt like a disappointment to the family at large, to his mother, to us. And he never looked for support throughout the entire period. He didn't talk to any of us about the issues. These were observed externally. Like I saw it, we saw the behavior, but there was never any communication between us or us and him, or him reaching out. And then, like I said, at the end of a 6-year period, around when I was 28, he ended up making a last phone call to my sister and then disappeared, and he was found a couple of days later out in the woods, which was really unfortunate. And while everyone knew that he had been struggling, and we tried to be supportive from the outside, like you try to keep in contact, you try to make amends. It just didn't work, and like it's not quite right to say that I was surprised at the same time as I was shocked, but like yeah, it was a very difficult situation that I'm having a hard time verbalizing still. It's been almost 10 years now, and it was the same time when we talked about it last. But I'll go into more detail as we get into more areas like of actual helpful things. Also a thing worth noting, like when these things happen over a long period of time and they're like consistently getting worse, is eventually you start withdrawing as well as a family member. And it got to the stage about 5 years in, which is a year before the actual event, where I actually had to seek support as well from mental health professionals for my own sake, because you get drawn into this cycle around the person that isn't feeling well, and you really, really try to help, but he just wasn't receptible. And I think that is, we'll see what Niklas has to say, but I think that could be a good point. One of the most important things that I learned from his journey and those events is that me as a male that will be aging and also just will take responsibilities in life, I need to be far more open and approach more people when things get difficult. The thing that I consider afterwards is that he wanted to carry everything by himself. He was a proud man, he was a good man, and he wanted to carry it himself, but it was too heavy a burden. That is a very meta summary of what occurred. And the lesson for me has been, no, I need to be an open and vulnerable man that talks to my neighbors and my family and my roundtable fellows if things are difficult. But that's a summary of the story, and I would love to go into more parallels, which I'm sure we will, but I would love to give Niklas a chance to talk because he has a very different perspective on a similar situation. So yeah.
Thank you very much for that story. And yeah, we'll get into some questions just after this, but I see Niklas is back, and Niklas, let's share your story now as Joachim shared his as well.
Yeah.
And then afterwards we can explore some common themes coming out from this.
Yeah. Is the microphone working now?
Perfect. Yes.
Superb. Yeah, my story is, it actually started at a young age. I grew up in the countryside in Sweden. Men here don't talk about hard stuff. They drink and they shut up. And I think my problems with mental health started at a really young age. My father disappeared when I was young. When I was a teenager, in my early 20s, I lost a lot of friends. A lot of them was suicide. So I know that side of the story as well. And I always said, how fuck can they do it? And yeah, we fast forward to 2015, a late night in July, been out partying, got home, and I just felt like I don't want to do this anymore. So then I tried to commit suicide. And the thing that led up to this, it's like Joachim was talking about with his father. I had some bad relationships. I had divorced my kid's mother. It was a terrible history also for me. A lot of anger and a feeling of being a big disappointment to my kids, to my parents, to everyone. I was told that I was a big disappointment by my exes. So I thought I am just a regular fuck up. I had my own trucking company and worked my ass off. That was my way of handling the problems instead of talking. I worked and I drank and I partied and just kept everything for myself. as Joachim also said. I'm a proud man. Guys handle shit themselves. We don't talk about it. I didn't have anyone to talk to at the moment. Luckily enough, 2 months after my attempt, I was invited to Round Table, and I saw a new side of how men can discuss these things. And, that was a big life changer for me, because I survived. You think I started to think maybe there is a meaning with this, but my problems didn't stop there, because in beginning of 2016 my company went sideways. I got ripped off by a good friend of mine. I started to get these suicidal thoughts back very heavily, so to that extent that I was afraid to sit in my car, because I didn't know if I was gonna turn into a meeting truck or plow into a mountain wall or something like that. And that's when I decided I need to do something. So I went to, luckily enough, in the neighboring community, we have a psychiatric ward. I went there and I said, I don't want to live anymore, but I want to live. So I want help. So they got me in, got me to sleep for a couple of days, because I hadn't been sleeping for a couple of weeks. Hadn't been sleeping, hadn't been eating. Made one of those tests where you can see how bad of a depression you have. And one of few tests I almost scored full points on. I think you could get 52 or 54 points. I was like 48 or 50. So I was in a bad state, really bad state. But luckily enough, I managed to turn this shit around. Today, almost 10 years later, I love life. I don't have any suicidal thoughts anymore. I have good days, I have bad days, but I can handle the bad days. And it's hard to talk about it, especially in English, but it's been a struggle. I'm not going to lie about that. It hadn't been a straight path back to finding the willing to live again. I had my setbacks. They usually come every second year or something like that, when I have a mild burnout. But they are getting easier and easier to cope with.
Okay. Wow, that's some deep stuff there, actually shared by both of you. And I think firstly, thank you, Nicholas. Thank you, Joachim, just for sharing your stories. I think this has really given us a lot to think about. But maybe just some questions from my side, and guys, feel free to jump to jump in. Maybe Nicholas, how did you actually decide to get the help? I mean, obviously, as you said you had the attempt. Did you realize that you know what, it was actually that you were this close to actually going on and acting on your thoughts at that stage? Or did it just, as you mentioned, it was one late night, and did it just come? Did you consider this beforehand? Was there any planning done?
I had those thoughts for a long time, several years, and just the thought about committing suicide in itself is very devastating, because we are human people. We want to be like everyone else. Why don't I want to live? I have everything. I have a family that loves me and supports me. I have 2 kids that I absolutely love above everything on this world. I got everything to live for. Why don't I want to live? Can you take this question again? My memory is pretty bad.
No. The question is, and you've already answered this. So the question was, did you immediately think of attempting suicide? But you mentioned that this actually built up over years.
Yeah.
And then obviously there was a period where you went through particular stress and depression, and one night with alcohol. Joachim, to you, it almost sounds like your father had the same kind of items going on. You mentioned that he went through a very tough divorce, problems at work. It's almost like all of the different facets in his life also did not work out. What would you say was your personal hardest struggles when you actually had a look at what your father actually had to go through? And maybe also expanding on that is, how did that impact you? You mentioned that you also needed some help.
Yeah. So like, yeah, that gets tricky. Like I mentioned, and Niklas also collaborates, like things happen over a longer period, I think, than people realize in general. Like when you actually experience this, like the first signs are there really early, but they're hard to pick up on, and things go for a very long time. And how you react as a family member over time also escalates. So, I mean, early on, the thing you did was, well, you sort out conversation. You felt that, well, he's not feeling well, but then you feel you're not necessarily welcome. Those were like the first couple of years, and you try to be there and be supportive. Like I mentioned, we went to court and I attended every single time just to be supportive. But then, like, as his health progressed towards the worse, and one of the things that was definitely a contributor to that was, well, obviously stress, sleep deprivation, like Niklas mentioned. Like the stress he was experiencing was causing him not to sleep, which was causing erratic behaviors. And alcohol consumption was on an exponential increase over time. Like, sure, he might have done what anyone does, goes on a Friday night or has a round table meeting and take a couple of beers initially. And towards the end, he was drinking almost a bottle of whiskey a day. That's the escalation part over a period of 6 years. And so how that affects you is, initially you're trying to be supportive, you're trying to be there, let them know they can talk to you or so on. But at the same time, like you get a very clear, at least from me, feeling that I'm the child, obviously, because I was the child. So he didn't really want to bring up his issues with me. He was appreciative that you're there, but he didn't really want to bring them up. They weren't my issues to deal with in that sense. And so you get slightly pushed away. But then as the troubles, at least for us, escalated, we had a number of events that were just bad. Like I said, he was a very responsible man for a lot of his life. He also did a lot of things that people like doing up here, which like hunting and that sort of thing. And we had incidents where his mental health deteriorated, and he started leaving his weapons lying around, for example, around the house. And then someone reported that to the police, and they came over, and we had a SWAT team arrive. That was very exciting. And then I had to take a couple of days off work after that, because I was in shock over, like, people came in, like we had the literal people came in through my door in SWAT suits and weapons saying, lay down, lay down. It's like, okay. Oh yeah. And that was about 4.5 years in this span of 6 years. And so, like, your family approach goes from eventually trying to be supportive to, oh my God, what's happening? I kind of need to start distancing myself, because now this is starting to affect. I needed to take time off work after an event like that because it was majorly stressed. Also, as the mental health issues got worse, like in the last 1.5 years, I'm not sure how familiar you guys are with delirium tremens, which is a very unfortunate state where your mind just thinks that you're somewhere completely different. And he entered that a number of times when he was like, he had these periods of total clarity where, like, oh my God, what am I doing? Sure, the divorce was bad, but like, hey, I can rebuild this. I just need to man up and deal with this. And he would go completely sober and then go into these delirium periods where like I would say that he became dangerous to other people because he didn't know what he was doing. He didn't know what he was seeing. And at that stage, so this was in the last year and a half, we started having far less contact, not because I wanted to, but because, yeah, like I started to seek support both from Alcoholics Anonymous for family and also from psychiatric care, how to deal with this as a relative. And they essentially told me, you just, at this point, you need to distance yourself. You need to let them know that you're there, but you need to distance yourself because now you're not showing up to work. You can't actually do anything. You're stressing out and losing sleep, and you're collapsing with him in a way. So the last year we had, and I feel really bad, but we had very little contact because like we lived in different places, and I would call and check up on him every so often. But now I feel like I partly participated in the isolation that he was experiencing at the same time as every professional was telling me, at this stage, you need to distance. It's too far gone. And that's really hard. I also forgot the initial question, but I think I kind of covered it.
You absolutely answered it.
Can I just ask, because I remember that I asked this the previous time, Joachim, and when you hear this, it's like this is harsh. And I asked you the same thing last time. I mean, when you hear this and we see you here and all the stories, did you ever feel like guilty in some way for the things that happens to your dad, you and your family? Did you feel like we should have done more, we should have done this, we should have, or was it, how did you feel? Because I mean, it must be heavy burden.
Like in periods you do. Definitely. Like I can feel it now. Like I said, it's been 10 years, and I feel my eyes welling up, and it sucks. But that's just to be expected. I don't feel as guilty as I could, which is really fortunate. But I also have a really strong feeling that I was there as much as I could. I really do feel that I tried to ingrain, I tried to have the conversations, I tried to be supportive. And he just wasn't, he wasn't receiving it, or it wasn't what he needed. But I feel really fortunate that I feel that I tried as far as I could. And it wasn't until, wow, this is really destroying my life, and other people start telling me you need to do stuff. And then I felt, okay, well, then I've obviously gone as far as I can. But now, like today, I bring this up, and I do feel that, like, yeah, like I feel like I wasn't doing enough the last year. I feel guilty that I took their advice to distance, because now I know what happened. And I didn't even think that, like, I didn't even consider that was a possibility until, well, the last couple of months. I was like, wow, he's really not doing well. And I only started considering it as an option because he was taken in for psychiatric care a month before committing suicide for reckless behavior. But they let him go after 2 days. And yeah. But yeah, no, there is some guilt there. Fortunately, not as much as there could have been. But had I ignored that earlier, that would have been far worse. So yeah.
Another question. Back to Nicholas, just from my side. Nicholas, Joachim now shared the impact that he had, and he obviously tried to speak to his father, but I mean, he wasn't the right person to speak to. Now, you sitting in from the other side, who would have been actually been able to reach you? Is it at all possible? Would it have been a friend, a parent, anyone else out there, or is it physically that you actually needed to get some professional help?
From my point of view, it's hard to listen to anyone when you're in that stage, because you just go up in your own brain. Everything, how do you explain this? You can't see your own problems because you had so much problems to deal with. So when anyone comes and wants to give you help, yada yada yada, you're just pushing them away. It's kind of self-defense or something. It's like, and your brain doesn't work rationally. You make, like Joachim say, irrational decisions in every sort of way, both personal and professional, and you just keep pushing people away because your brain is actually shutting down. Everything, only thing that works in your brain at the end is the inner reptile part, we call it in Sweden. So I think it's very hard, especially when people around you come, because I had the same experience as Joachim. I had a mother who was worried like shit for a good reason with when looking back, and all I said was, it's nothing, don't care, I will sort this out, I just need some time, it's a bit much. And I think you need someone from the outside to really pinpoint the problem, or for my point of view, it was just a small thing. A friend of mine commented on a Facebook status I made, "Why are you so fucking bitter and angry? I don't recognize you anymore. You used to be fun and loving life." And that was an eye-opener for me. But I think it's also very, it differs from person to person, but I think it's easier to listen to a professional than to someone close to you, because especially if it's a parent or something, they're just worrying. It's nothing.
Did you feel like, did you feel like a burden?
Yeah, to everyone around me, friends, family, everyone. I was just.
Did you tell anyone that you felt that way, or you just swallowed it in?
Nah, I just swallowed it in.
Yeah. So
I didn't want. No one knew. Because I didn't want to be a burden.
Yeah. And maybe that was the thing that you wanted to get away from as well. You know, you saw a burden for others and you saw a burden yourself.
Yeah, it was the only reason. Yeah. I was only causing problems because my brain didn't work properly, and yeah.
Do you think that if you got help earlier, in an early stage, if someone has recognized it earlier, or if you had recognized something earlier, do you think it would be easier to reach you there, or was it? What do you think about that?
It's hard to say, because if you're not willing to accept and willing to get help, it's like when you're addicted to something. If you don't want to get clean, you're not gonna get clean. And and I think maybe if I had known some of the things I have read about concerning health and what causes it, maybe if I had that knowledge before, and maybe if I had a male role model who taught me that it's okay to speak about feelings as a man, maybe it could have saved me a lot earlier.
Do you feel? I will ask you first, and then I will ask Joachim the same question. Are you angry at anyone after you have gone through now or previously? Do you feel anger towards anyone, like close to you? Why didn't you do more? Or
no, not at all. They did everything they could, and even more. And I can relate to what Joachim was telling about his feelings. I can see what I had put my mother through, and she also had a lot of guilt feelings regarding my absent father and things like that. But that's not her responsibility. And from my point of view, Joachim, I think you made the right decision. It's not worth being dragged down in the shit by yourself because you had just ended up like your father, I'm afraid. So And it's
What about
hard
you,
to
Joachim? Oh, sorry.
yeah, it's hard to reach out to someone who doesn't want the help, who doesn't see the problems themselves. It's impossible.
What about you, Joachim? Are you angry at anyone or any form of support that you didn't have from? Could be family or could be professionals. It could be society in some way. I don't know. The hell mental.
So that's yeah, yeah, of course. No, I am sort of, but it's not related to the health issues. I am extremely. It is now one of the few people that I absolutely despise is obviously my stepmother initialized the divorce because of what happened in the divorce. But my anger there is around the behaviors that she was willing to do that resulted in this entire issue at all, because I considered the whole thing excessively unfair how it was handled. And so I see her as still a bit of like an initiator for my dad might have had issues, but I see the agitation and the creation of the issues stemming from there. But it's unrelated to that, other than be nice to people, everyone, including you girls. Be nice to people, and this stuff we can prevent so many of these things to happen. And I am a little bit disappointed with professionals that did have him in custody a month before the suicide and just let him go. But I'm not angry as much as I understand that they have a very difficult job. These are difficult situations, and while they couldn't have known, of course, they were the last people to interact with him in a professional sense, and so I am disappointed. Yes. Yeah.
From my side, Joachim, if we've obviously got a lot of tablers worldwide, and it might be that we've got friends, fathers, brothers, sisters, anyone in a similar situation, where you see that maybe in this instance you're doing all right, but you can see that someone very close to you is going through a very, very tough time. What advice can you maybe give to people in a similar situation such as yours? It's almost like if you could go back in time and you could change anything, what would you, what advice could you give to people? This is leading up to the process, and then even if then things turn out as unfortunately as it did with you, what advice can you give to people?
So that comes back to a little bit what I talked about earlier, and which Niklas has also been on. I think one of the two things. It's really hard to intervene late. I think, like, my experience is, and of course it's a single case, but my experience is that it became harder and harder the longer went on. So early intervention and early support. Don't let people get isolated early. That's the one thing. Like, I should have reacted. I feel I should have reacted earlier on the signals in the first couple of years, not in the last couple of years. But the other thing is that I think is more critical is educating men themselves that looking for support is okay. Because had my dad's mentality not been this, I am carrying the legacy of our family, and I am burdening this all by myself. And exactly like Niklas said, like just you toughen up and you deal with it. That is probably the single most helpful thing. So getting to people, because this isn't going to disappear. We're all going to age. We're all going to have these issues, but themselves being in the mindset that it's okay to get support for this before it happens, say 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line. When Graham, I hope nothing happens to you, but
yeah,
having that is probably the best thing we can do, spreading this and making sure that men change their attitude to carrying burdens in the family. Like that would be my perspective, at least. Yeah.
Then just another question that I have for Niklas. Niklas, what happens now afterwards? So you had the suicide attempt, and I mean that was obviously a very low moment in your life. How do you actually go and rebuild after that? and this is from realizing, I mean, as you said, is that you want to live, but you also don't want to live. How do you actually go and rebuild your life after that?
Luckily enough, I'm stubborn as hell. As I mentioned, when I was in the spring of 2016, when I went into the hospital, I just decided I can't live like this. Either I'm gonna live, or I'm gonna die, and I want to live. I have 2 kids. I have a family that I love. I have friends. So I started with a clean slate. This is how I want to be. I had to rebuild myself from the bottom and up. I started to look up a lot of, why is this happening to me? Why am I getting suicidal thoughts? Do I have panic attacks? Yada, yada, yada. What can I do to prevent this? So I started to go back and find like a source of my problem. Where did this begin? What has this caused? Why have it caused these problems to me? And like suicidal thoughts, it's just the brain's way of saying it wants peace and quiet, but it's kind of not a good solution to get peace and quiet. It's better to have a life that gives you peace and quiet. And instead of never speaking about my problems, I made the opposite. I made just a status update on Facebook, coming clean out with my problems, with my suicidal attempt, with my problems with anxiety, depression, yada, yada, yada. Because if I don't, just to take away the stigma, I found a Swedish guy who has something called Aldrig ensam, never alone. I'm not alone with my problems. And that helped me a lot to find someone I could relate to. I'm not alone with this. There are a lot of guys who have this problem, and I try to make this from a bad thing to a good thing. What can I get some positive things out of my struggle? Yeah, I can be a much better parent because I can teach my own son that it's okay to speak about things. I'm very aware of my friends around me. If they are feeling bad, I see signs. Maybe I can help them to deal with it before it hits a real depression or something like that. And I try to take away the stigma and make this a positive thing, see the benefits of it, because it's not just darkness. Today I see it's hard to say I'm glad that I went through it. I'm glad I survived it, and I'm glad that I can share my story and maybe help someone who recognize their own struggles, and that makes it worth it. Then it's not just a waste of a lot of good years of my life. And yeah, so I was just stubborn enough to make it, and maybe I had a clear moment where my mind worked kind of okay. So, I hope that's in some way answer your question.
I'm just fascinated because we talk about how can we make a difference and what can you do, and I mean, when I hear you speak now, Niklas, I mean, we can find the difference in big things and in small things. I mean, we're talking about a Facebook post here, and someone just writing a couple of words, acknowledging you, see you, just highlight on you, and just asking you a question. What the beep is this? Who are you? I mean,
No.
And that's just maybe for many just a small thing, but I mean, we talk about the healthcare and everything, and that's quite big. You've been to that by yourself. You went into healthcare and got help there, but you always also have the small things. I mean, when people just acknowledging you, see you, and posting a Facebook answer on a post, and what is this? And I think that fascinates me because we can see and we can make a difference as a human being, both in big ways and in small ways. And I think that's so interesting.
yeah.
And thank you for sharing.
Yeah. Thank you to letting me share.
Nicholas, maybe a question from my side, and Joachim, I want to pull you in here as well. Now, we're all tablers, and I think we're all very blessed and lucky to be tablers. What role do you think we as roundtablers should actually be playing for each other in this kind of headspace? Because I mean, it's yes, we've all got friends, we've got work colleagues, but surely we as tablers we'd be able to recognize some of these signs as well. So, what do you think, Nicholas? What would you have liked to see from had you been in table at that point, or what do you feel is the right tabling thing for us to do to actually when you start seeing this in a fellow tabler?
From my point of view, tabling helped me enormously. As I said, I was invited or became a member just two or 3 months after my suicide attempt, and like I said, it was the first time I ever saw men talking about hard stuff. Like we have our 3 minutes in Sweden, and you can talk about building a fence, or you can talk about a divorce, and you have a place where you feel an acceptance. You are accepted just the way you are, and showing
Sorry,
that
Nicholas?
it's yeah.
Sorry, Nicholas. Will you just explain what the 3 minutes is? Because I know that's a very Swedish thing, but it's not something that everyone in the rest of the world has. And I mean, knowing the 3 minutes, I think that's a very beautiful thing that the rest of the world should adopt.
Yeah, in Sweden you can't have a round table meeting without the 3 minutes. Every meeting you have, one person is given the 3 minutes, and he is able to talk about anything he wants. It can be, like I said, building a fence. It can be about seeking professional help about his company, advices on yada yada yada, or it could be like, fuck, my life is going sideways now. And it just like a vent for you to vent things that are going on in your life. It could be small things, it could be large things. You can go for advices, or you just want to make everybody cry. And for me, that helped me a lot, a shitload actually, because it helped me to start sharing things. And like when you're depressed, you don't feel like a very funny guy, and you just feel like, why should I go? I'm just bringing everyone down. But no, I kicked my asses to those meetings, and I got energy from seeing other people enjoying their lives, and I was helped to start talking. It started small, but gradually grew the ability to talk about hard things. And I think a lot of like the club here in Hedemora, where I was a member, every meeting they have a point on the agenda that says, how are you feeling today? And there they can share, well, my life is going sideways, and then we can talk about it. And I think that's really important, that it's just not drinking beer and laughter. You can also talk about serious things and hard things. And I think that's the best benefit about Roundtable, is the ability to also talk about hard times.
Okay. And would you agree that it's almost a responsibility to talk about hard times, because initially some guys might struggle with it, and might not be, as you mentioned earlier, might not want to open up, or isn't maybe as comfortable. But I mean, if there's 1 or 2 male role models, or other guys just willing to step up and to say, you know what, I'm going through these kind of struggles, I need some help, or something like that. Do you see it almost as a responsibility from tablers to be that open and be that vulnerable, so that it actually sets a good precedent and a good example for others?
Yeah, I think so. I think so.
Okay.
Yeah. We have a responsibility to care about others, and we have the adopt, adapt, improve help each other improve. And that's a big part for men to improve on, is to speak about hard times.
Right. Jakob, to you, similar kind of question. How do you, what role do you think Roundtable can play? And as we now heard, there's 3 minutes in Sweden. Yeah, what do you think would be a responsible tabler's takeaway, and what he must all do in a tabling meeting? And it doesn't need to just be in a meeting.
No, of course. Well, one thing, I think that tabling, by its very nature, assists in preventing is a strong word, but assists with these type of issues. Like, I do believe that a lot of the things that I observed were due to isolation, feeling isolated, not having contact, driving people away. And like I said, later this becomes really difficult to deal with, but catching it in an early stage when you're still open to communication and having dialogue is fantastic. And just tabling, by its nature of meeting friends that you actually trust over a period of a couple of years as you become part of the tabling community, is super helpful. What can you do? Like, I absolutely believe in like early interventions, and the early signs would be things like driving oneself to isolation. So like a person starts missing 6 meetings in a row, or you start getting those type of signals, reaching out, asking for a lunch, just the small things, but those are things you absolutely can do, and as early as possible, and making sure that there's creating non-stressed settings where you can really talk and hash out about an issue. So the rest of the world might not have 3 minutes. We call them 3 minutes. They're never 3 minutes, obviously. Someone brings up, oh, I'm going through a separation right now. I don't know how to deal with this. What is going to happen with my kids? That's not a 3-minute discussion. We end up talking for an hour and a half about, have other people in the group gone through it? How do they solve it? What's actually going to help? Well, time, etc. Yeah, so just clarifying, and I think that is important, like creating non-stressful situations where people can actually talk about what they're going through. And that might also be way easier one-on-one. Like tablers create a great environment. And I know in my club, for example, and Niklas, we have no issues talking about any level of issues with the whole group. But I do think that people that are going down a spiral of ill health might have it easier. Book that lunch, or hey, I want to come over on Friday night. We want to do a barbecue, or somewhere outside of family hours. And I think that would make a huge impact of having a good session of time of just being able to talk. Yeah, because I do think most people do want to be well, and they want to feel well, and they want to, until they're so far gone that their minds aren't quite working the same reasonable way. But early on it is, and they want to have the contacts, they want to retain their friends. So yeah.
Thank you. Come now, before we wrap up, I just want to give a short time to each of you, starting with Pierre, then Niklas, then Joachim. If there's 1 or 2 key items that you would like to share, what would that be, specifically with regards to taking action, to basically anything that we spoke about today? So Pierre, from your side, what would you say is, if you want the guys who logged in, or maybe just catching the tail end of the show, what would you say is the most important thing that you would like everyone to leave here with?
I must say that I loved the way that you talk about the way we have a responsibility, Graham. I love that, because I think that's where we have to go. We have to build a structure where we open up for people who are not strong. If we feel strong, be humble and use that strength also to talk about something that is challenging in your life. Because either if you're strong or you're peak of life, there's always something in your life that you feel like, this is a problem, this is a challenge for me, and that's not for your sake, not egoistic thing. for someone else. Because if you open up when you're strong, when you open up when you feel the top, you open up the door for someone else that maybe don't, and you don't see it, because mental illness you don't always see. It's on the inside, but we can always build structures and open up ourselves to inspire someone else to do that. I love that responsibility. I love that.
Thank you, Pierre. Then going over to Nicholas, what would you say if what would your message be for anyone leaving now? What is the one thing that you would really want them to take away from this?
That it's okay to not be okay, and always to remember that you are never alone. Listen to your friends, listen to your family. If someone is concerned about you, and take your life to take a pause, reflect some, and try to reflect about your feelings about stuff, and don't be afraid to speak up when life are giving you lemons. And just don't be afraid to speak, and don't forget that you're not alone, even though it can feel so like you're alone sometimes.
Thank you. I mean, yeah, that's incredibly powerful. And then Joachim?
Yep. Yeah, no, I really do think that the most important thing is speak up early. Do what you can to prevent this from being a catastrophical clinical issue by addressing it early, and you do that by speaking and by seeking support structures, often locally in your communities or in your tabling group, like addressing things early, and let people know when things are really difficult. Be willing to just don't shut in and reach out. That's
Thank you. So then, as we're approaching the end of the show, I just want to really say thank you to the panel, specifically to Nicholas and to Joachim, for being willing to share it's very clear, it's very personal. It's something that really affected your lives on a very deeply personal level. And honestly, just from my side, thank you for sharing that. It's as I think we've all alluded to, and we all know that men really struggle to share. We like carrying our own burdens, and hopefully now, with some of the tips and the advice that you guys have also given to anyone viewing in, guys are hopefully willing to share a little bit more. So just once again from my side, guys, honestly, thank you very, very much. Then just in closing, as we've now heard, we need to really let go of the stigma of just carrying alone and thinking that we're alone, even though, as Nicholas has said, that we really think about that, or you can really feel that we're alone for so much. Guys, please talk, please be open and honest. And it's actually a very good thing, I think, that the guys in Sweden has taught us today, is to have that little 3 minutes, even though it might not be 3 minutes, but to really go and not just ask, hey, how are you doing? No, I'm doing fine. Really have a 2 or 3 minute session in a meeting where someone can really come and open up, and then share, and then actually be supported by his fellow Roundtable brothers. From our side, thank you very much for following along live on Facebook. I had a look, there's no questions there currently. There's a couple of very positive comments. Once again, just commending the guys for being willing and open to speak about this. So gentlemen, from our side, thank you very much. And the RTI University will be back shortly. Have a look at the social media postings for our next session that we've got. Thank you very much, and goodbye.